In this session, we're going to solve DME questions. Now, DME, for some of you, you know that it just means the Department of Medical Education. Basically, we're going to solve all these questions. Now, you can be pausing the video as we are solving these questions just to, try out. These are multiple choice questions. Now, we've noticed that most of you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, so you can subscribe to our channel to just help support the channel. We'll definitely appreciate. So basically, what we're talking about today is questions. Okay, so the first question is, listening is a mental process that play a vital role in our daily lives. So A, we're talking about absorbable, B, visible, C, invisible, D, echoable. So which one are we going to go for? So listening, we know that listening itself is it's really a mental process, okay? It is a cognitive process. But now, is it absorbable? Okay, this doesn't sound right. Is it visible? Can you see? Nope. Is it invisible? Yes. Is it echoable? No. So what you should know is that listening is not a physical action, okay, that you can see with your eyes. Okay, it's a cognitive process that happens internally, hence making it invisible. So that is our answer there. Let's come to question number 2. Now, we'll say a well-organized talk is dash. A, short, B, long, C, structured, D, random. So a well-organized talk should be very, very structured. Okay, it should be structured. So what we mean is that it should follow a certain logical format, okay, making it structured rather than random or, let's say, short. It should be well structured in a logical format. Let's come to the third question. When verbally communicating with a patient, avoid dash. A, open-ended questions, B, closed-ended questions, C, leading questions, D, multiple questions. Okay, now you should avoid leading questions. Now what you should understand is that leading questions can bias the patient's response. Okay, that's why open-ended questions are preferred to encourage honest and full answers. In medical practice, mostly we encourage open-ended questions because you want the patients to fully express themselves. Otherwise, leading questions that are leading them in a certain direction, you might not get all the information that you need. Same with closed-ended question, where someone is just answering yes, no, without explaining what is happening. So basically that. So we avoid by all means leading questions. We come to question number 4. Question number 4, we are asked, CC is a notation in memos meaning dash. Copy to, copycat, correspondence, consideration. Okay, CC is a notation in memos meaning. Now CC, it means you're copying to, okay, this meaning carbon copy. Okay, the CC here means carbon copy. So the explanation for this just means that you are indicating that the memo is also sent to another person. Okay, you're trying to make a copy, but this is also sent to another person. That's why now you indicate CC. We come to question number 5. Your team leader at the hospital asks you to justify the intervention you recommend for a client. What does the leader want you to do? The first answer is provide examples and describe relationships. between the intervention and the disease. B. Explain the meaning of the intervention. C. Provide the description of the intervention. So here our answer is this first one. Provide examples and describe relationships between the intervention and the disease. Okay, what you should know is that justifying just means explaining why the intervention is appropriate, including how it relates to the disease. Okay, so basically that. So you want to provide the examples and you have to describe the relationship. That's how you are going to, justify. That's how you're going to explain why the intervention is appropriate. We come to question number 6. Question number 6, we are saying I dash the lecturers dash in the lecture hall. Okay, so what will be the answer? I thought the lecturers were in the lecture hall. Now thought and the wear, this wear, it's like you're wearing clothes, right? So can't just apply here. We come to the second one. I thought the lecturers were in the lecture hall. Okay, so yes, the thought's fine, but where, this where, you're talking about the place. Okay, so then the last one, I thought the last two, taught, this other one is taught. I taught the lecturers in the lecture hall. I thought the lecturers in the, okay, so this also doesn't make sense. So I thought the lecturers were in the lecture hall. I taught and were, taught and were. Okay, so in this case it will be D. Why, if we put taught here, I taught the lecturers were, I thought the lecturers were in the lecture hall. Okay, so I thought the lecturers were in the lecture hall. I taught the lecturers in the lecture hall. Okay, what are we writing? We're going to write thought. You thought the lecturers were in the lecture hall. Okay, not really taught, because it's them teaching you, right? Basically that. Then we come to 7. When is it necessary to cite a source? So when your ideas build on someone else, this is true. When you are paraphrasing someone else's ideas, true. All of the above, true. So our answer here overall is all of the above. Okay, because you must cite when building on. Paraphrasing or directly quoting someone else's ideas, you have to cite. Okay, otherwise if you don't cite, that would be plagiarism. We come to question number 8. Which of the following is not an aspect of cross-cultural communication? Okay, so cross-cultural communication. Okay, so what are we going to do? One's culture, one's customs and illness, one's customs and values. Which of the following is not? Okay, one's customs and gender, one's customs and clothing. Okay, this one might not be cross-cultural. So while clothing may reflect culture, what you should understand is that it's not a core aspect of communication, in terms of key values or gender roles. Okay, so you can't compare clothing to gender roles that culture plays, values, even how culture describes illness. Okay, so basically that. The R in the scrap acronym refers to dash. The R in the scrap listening, the R in the SCRAP acronym refers to dash: referee, resolution, receiver, a resume or a resume. Now, SCRAP, it depends with what you're talking about, okay? But in this case, when you come to DNE, because we're talking about communication here, the S C R A P. Okay, and then from the literature I found, SCRAP just means the S in this case is the sender of the information, okay? Then the sender is using a certain channel, or what you might want to call a medium. Then after that message has been sent, the R in this case, which they are asking us, the receiver is going to receive that information, okay? Then after the receiver receives that information, now here you can talk about the audience, okay? A can be the audience which you are talking about. You have to make sure that you are converse that with your audience. If you are talking with medical people, probably you'd want to use medical language, okay? Now the A in this case can also mean the action that is going to be taken, okay? Let's say the receiver has received the information, okay? Now that action that they're going to take can be the A again. Then the P in this case, we're talking about the process, okay? The process is going to take that information, or the purpose. Let's say the purpose of that information, okay? Why are you conveying this message to this audience? Why? Okay, so that is the purpose. So in this case, the R in the SCRAP acronym refers to the receiver. We come to question number 10. The patient is most likely to comply with medical advice when... Okay, so let's start with the first one. When the illness has serious symptoms, when treatment schedule is complex, when the doctor has taken time to provide information care to the patient. Sounds correct. When the illness is chronic. Okay, so the patient is more... what you should understand is that patient compliance improves when they feel informed and cared for, okay? That's one thing that you should understand. So if they feel like they are well informed about a certain, let's say, condition, and when they feel like they are well cared for, where the doctor is just very calm and very nice to them, do you mind me checking your temperature, you're going to be fine, everything is going to be fine. This is not maybe if it's a really critical condition, this is a very critical condition, however, we're going to work something out. If they feel cared for, if they feel informed about a certain issue, their chances are high that they're going to comply when they feel informed and when they feel cared for. Question number 11. Which factor is used when evaluating information resources using the authority criteria? Okay, authority criteria. So which factor is used when evaluating information resources using the authority criteria? Whether the author is unemployed, okay, this is not correct. The author's area of expertise, this might be one of the answers. Does the author or website provide contact information? All of the above. Okay, let's analyze this too. Does the author or website provide contact information? Okay, whether they don't provide a website or their phone number, provided they are an authority in that field, then their information will just be fine. So basically, the author's area of expertise is a factor used when evaluating information resources using the authority criteria. Okay, so what this means is that if, let me say, online, nowadays everyone is talking about everything, okay, even if they are not experts in that thing. So they'll come, someone who did, let me say, someone who's not a health practitioner, you just come and say something related to health. Maybe they just did economics or other things. But now, when you are evaluating the information they're going to talk about, so you're going to evaluate it if you're using the authority criteria. An authority is where now you've risen to the rank in that program. Let me say you're doing you're doing public health, you do your masters, you do your PhD, maybe even become a professor. You become an authority in that field. Okay, it's like if you say something about public health or relation to health, everyone might want to listen to you, because that's your area of expertise. Okay, so in this case, evaluating authority involves checking if the author is qualified in the subject area. That's what we're talking about here. So that is very important. Of course, there are other methods that you can use to evaluate people, but mostly others use the authority area criteria. Probably you just want to know the credibility, okay, of this person. Okay, we come to question number 12. Question number 12, one of the principles of communication is that a message should include all facts the patient needs for the reaction desired. This is a principle known as, if you want to now prevent, the key thing here is conciseness. We're just talking about something that is very short. Completeness, complete. Now we're talking about almost everything. Concrete, we're not talking about clarity, how clear. Completeness, completeness. Do we have two answers here? Okay, seems like we have two answers. Okay, you can pick any of them. So completeness ensures the receiver has all necessary information to respond appropriately. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Question number 13. The benefits of using citation and the appropriate style are dash. So what are the benefits of using citations? So the first one is you are providing hard evidence or expert witnesses to support your argument. Okay, this is true. You let your reader know that you are working within the academic tradition. This is true. You avoid charges of plagiarism. This is true. So our answer, therefore, it is all of the above. Okay, so why do you cite someone's work? If let me say I'm doing a research, however, if I want to include some of the information that another person did work on, I need to cite them, okay, because they did work on that. So citations are going to provide what? Evidence. They are going to also show academic integrity, and moreover, they're also going to prevent plagiarism. Okay, that is very important. Then we come to question number 14. Mutual understanding between a nurse and a patient can be built in all the following statements except dash. So mutual understanding between a nurse and a patient can be built in all the following statements except. Okay, actively listening to the patient. Okay, this will build trust. Asking for clarification, this can also be build trust. Give patient advice. Okay, let's wait for this one. Demonstrating understanding. Okay, this can also be an answer, because this one, why I was saying except this, giving advice may not foster understanding. Okay, that was what you should understand. Listening and clarifying are more effective. Okay, so let's say you want to build this relationship with this patient or a rapport. You would want to actively listen to what they're talking about. Otherwise, that rapport will not be built. Okay, so basically, listening is very, very important. Then, for it to be also very effective, clarity is very, very important. Clarifying, okay, where maybe if you're even giving information to this patient, you have to be very clear, okay? You don't have to be vague. So basically that can also build a mutual relationship. Then C saying give patient advice. I'll leave it, I'll explain it at the end. Demonstrating understanding. Now you have to make sure that at least you're also understanding the patient side of view, okay, as opposed to just giving advice. Otherwise, that, yes, you might have been an expert in that field, but you also need to first listen to what they say. What are their views on their ailment or disease? Listen to them, okay? So that is very important. Now, giving patient advice. Now, if you just give them advice without actively listening to what they are telling you, without even just seeking clarification, or maybe even just trying to show them that you're understanding what you're talking about, what they're talking to you about, that relationship might not be built. And in most instances, this has been observed where some of these patients, they never come back again because probably they were never received well. Okay, so that is very important. Then question number 15, which of the following is important in facilitating communication between a nurse and the patient? Okay, so you want to facilitate communication. Now, which one is important between a nurse and the patient? Which one is important? Illness? Nope. Ethnicity? No. Dressing? No. Language? Yes. For you to, language is essential for clear communication between the nurse and the patient or any healthcare provider. The language is one that is going to allow you to communicate. Otherwise, these other things like dressing has nothing to do with facilitating communication. Someone's tribe and the illness, they're not going to facilitate. However, the language is the one that is going to come in to connect you to the patient. Question number 16, Microsoft Word is an example of dash. So Microsoft Word is an example of dash. A is an operating system. Nope. It's a processing device. No. Application software. Yes. Local network. No. So you know that Microsoft Word is an application software. This one is a program. You know that the Microsoft Word is used to perform a specific task, like word processing. Okay, word processing, mostly we use Microsoft Word. However, there are other programs that you can use, Excel, PowerPoint, all those are just programs, so they are applications. Okay, basically that. It's not an operating system. So what you should understand, that a software is a set of those instructions. Okay, a program actually. That's what I'm talking about. So that is very important. Okay, let's come to question number 17. Which of the following is not a feature of referencing software? Manage files and references is not. Okay, this manage files and references, this is a feature of referencing software. Okay, so as you are referencing, putting references to the work that you're doing, so one key feature of the references is that you have to manage the files and the references. So that is a feature. Automatically generate bibliographies and reference lists. Okay, then automatically check credibility of sources, links directly with word processors. Okay, so basically, so automatically generates bibliographies and reference lists. This is very important. I'm trying to check the last one. Automatically checks credibility of sources links directly with word processors. Okay, now what we should understand is that referencing tool doesn't, let me say, they don't access credibility. Okay, what they just do is that they manage citations and formatting. Okay, so basically you are not going to check the credibility of this person. Okay, so basically credibility, we're just talking about do you have qualifications in that area. So we find that someone did let me say they might do a good example that I can give is let's say, like I just the earlier analogy, just because you've gotten a link from let me not mention names, let's say you go online, you find a post, someone has maybe just even your friend, your old friend who is at home, found an article somewhere, they wrote something about, let's say, marriage, or let me say they write something about yeah, let me just say maybe tobacco, and maybe they've never done a study, there is no credibility about that, but you just get the link and you put it in your let's say in your research or in your paper that you're trying to come up with. Now when we are checking, or when you are using this referencing software, it's just going to show all the references. Okay, so basically it doesn't check credibility, it just put them in a very nice and way to follow. So basically that is very, very important for us to know. Okay, so which one is not? So the one that is not, it is this one, the last one, automatically checks credibility of sources. It doesn't. Question number 18, what is the speed of computer measured in? Okay, so the speed of a computer is measured in gigahertz. Okay, so kilo means 1,000. We learned about prefixes. Mega, it's like a million, it's a million. Okay, giga, we're talking about the billion. Okay, nanoseconds. Okay, nanosecond, like that, close to that. So basically the speed of a computer itself is measured in gigahertz. Gigahertz, what the gigahertz does is that it measures the clock speed of a computer processor. Okay, so you're trying to measure the speed at which your computer is going to be moving at. So that is very, very important. Question number 19, what is a literature research? What is a literature research? A is saying ask your classmate what information resources they use in their research. Information resources they use in their research. It is the same as a literature review, a survey of publications and information on a specific topic. A and C. Okay, so what you should understand is that when we're talking about literature search, so we're talking about a survey of publications and information on a specific topic. So you're just trying to find out, because literature research or literature search, you're just trying to find those publications that have the information that you need on a particular topic that you're researching on. Okay, so as you cross on to because as you be doing, some of you, as you come to Ridgeway, you can't graduate without doing your research. That is just the policy. You have to do a research, so you understand these things. So now there's a difference between literature review and the literature search. So when you're just trying to survey, just trying to check around, that is literature search. Okay, so what we're talking about is that it just involves finding relevant academic sources on that topic that you're talking about. Okay, so that is very important. You're not getting everything, but you're just getting those ones which are specific. Question number 20. What are the 3 ways by which active listening is involved in responding? So what are the 3 ways by which active listening is involved in responding? So what are they? So we're talking about active listening, so pay particular attention to how they're asking these questions. Active listening, what are the 3 ways, okay, so involved in responding? So let's start with the first one. Mentally, for you to actively listen, okay, mentally very important. Verbally, oh yeah, you have to listen to the actual ways. Non-verbally, yes, the verbal cues, let's say the non-verbal cues, the hands, the gestures, those are very important. So this might be correct. Feeling, understanding, and thought, probably no. Thought, skills, and understanding. Content, feeling, no. Okay, so basically the first one is the answer. So active listening, you have to face, it includes internal processing. You can only process when your mental faculties are very are active. So that is very, very important. Then if we're going to talk about the spoken word, okay, the spoken feedback is very, very important. Then the body language, those are the non-verbal cues. So we're talking about the gestures, the hands, the posture. Those also are very, very important. Question number 21. Students should understand how to participate in tutorials as they do dash. Team listening, predicting, observation, ask questions. So students should understand how to participate in tutorials as they ask questions. That's what makes sense here. So asking questions shows engagement. Okay, so let's say you're having a class the way we're having this class, but now when you want to now fully engage, how do you participate in this tutorial? You ask questions. Okay, so you have to now understand how to participate in this tutorial. How are you going to understand? Through asking questions, and it helps you clarify. It helps clarify understanding. That is because when you ask a question, you get even more understanding. So that is very important. Not just observing, not just predicting. Predicting actually is very, very misleading. Predicting what someone will say, predicting what they mean. So basically, it is very important to ask what someone meant than just predicting like, oh, actually this concept means this. No, ask so that you get clarity. That is very important. Then we come to question number 21. What is the key to effective communication? What is the key to effective communication? Listening, that is very important. Knowledge, attitude, nature. Okay, what is the key to effective communication? Now, what you should understand is that listening is foundational to understanding, okay, and responding effectively. Because if you haven't heard what someone has said, how are you going to effectively communicate? How are you going to effectively respond? So for you, it is one thing to communicate, it is another thing to communicate effectively. So you can just say words, but if you haven't gotten the feedback from another person, there will be no effective communication there. So get the information, listen, then respond. Okay, so that is very important to understand. So someone wisely said that Don't listen to respond. Okay, don't just listen to respond. Listen to understand. So you want to understand what someone is saying and not just to respond. That is very important. Okay, the basic skills of active listening, which is a cornerstone of effective communication, is dash. So we're talking about the basic skill of active listening, and we're being told that it's a cornerstone of effective communication is dash. So let's start with this, the first one. Comprehend the underlying meaning of spoken words and giving due attention to their feelings and literal meaning as well. The basic skills of active listening. Okay, I want to comprehend what this person is saying. This might be correct. A diagnostic formulation of the patient as he speaks. Clarifies what the patient relates without being paternalistic. Understand what both the patient and physician are saying, and the undercurrents of spoken and unspoken feelings between the two. Okay, it's very, where feelings are involved, it's very hard to know, even if you're actively speaking. Okay, it might be very hard. Okay, women are good at feeling things, but when it comes to guys barely feel things. Okay, because if a woman says it doesn't feel right, it means it really doesn't feel right, because she knows, she feels it. But for guys, it's a skill that they need to develop. Basically that. So basically it might not be the basic skill for active listening. Okay, so what we should understand is that the first one, we're talking about to comprehend the underlying meaning. You want to understand the content, okay, of what this person is saying, the content of spoken words, and giving due attention to their feelings. Okay, so we're talking about one, the content. Two, we're talking about the emotional tone. Okay, their feelings and lateral meaning as well, the emotions that are being portrayed. So it's very hard, it's very easy to show, people easily send off their emotions when they're triggered about something. So basically, as they are speaking, you'll be able to if this person is shouting, if this person is upset, the voice just says everything. So the emotional tone, very, very, very important. Okay, as one of the basics, especially where in this time now, where it was long time ago, it never mattered about your emotions. Okay, but now with the advent of technologies, rights, and all these things, there's an aspect of emotional intelligence, and that is one of the basic skills that you need, either as a health practitioner or just in your various field. Basically, that is very, very important. Now 23, if you are deciding over what you have heard in class from the lecturer, you are in dash. If you are deciding over what you have heard in class from the lecture, you are in dash. Okay, now deciding over what you heard in class is reaction stage of listening, evaluation stage of listening, okay, interpretation stage of listening. So we're talking about you deciding over what the lecturer said or what you heard from the class. So basically, when you're deciding, you are evaluating. Okay, when you're deciding, you're not reacting, you're just trying to now think about the decision that you're going to make. Interpretation, you are not yet interpreting, you're just trying to find out before you even interpret the information. Okay, so you're going to realize that this stage involves judging the value or the relevance of the information. Okay, basically that is evaluation. So that is very important. Okay, let's come to question number 24. You are working on a paper and the majority of the research you've done is from the web. You find a paper that is very similar to the one you're working on. You decide to use a few paragraphs from the internet paper, word for word. You include a reference to the work on your works cited page, but not in text citation in your paper. Technically this is plagiarism, but since it is only one page, it is not that big of a deal. Actually, it is a deal, it's a big deal. Okay, this is not academic dishonesty. It is academic dishonesty. You are guilty of plagiarism. Yes, you are very guilty of plagiarism. The last one, you included a reference on the works cited page, so that's enough. No, this is not enough. Citing only in the works cited page is insufficient. That's what you should understand. In-text citation is required. Okay, so don't just, where is that reference coming from? That is very important, because once you don't put the reference, let me say I don't put in-text citation. Okay, I put like a tau to mean several. Okay, instead of me meaning putting all of them, like let me say mulawa, mono, okay, Levi, maybe they were doing a certain work, let's say Rebecca. Instead of writing all the names, okay, I'm just going to maybe write one or two names, then I'm just going to put a tau, okay, meaning and others. Basically that is their work in textly. Okay, I even put like the date. Okay, I put the date. Now it might depend on what you are synthetic. 2024, maybe they did this in 2024. Put it in brackets and show that it is there. These are their words. Okay, it's from the work that they did in the research paper itself, before you even reach to the references. Okay, because it's, otherwise if you don't do this, that would mean those are your words, okay, of which you just got them from somewhere and you got them word for word. So that would be, you'll be guilty of plagiarism. (25) The lecturer who asks a student to enumerate the services the Unza library offers to learners expects the students to dash. Okay, now to enumerate, what you should understand. Okay, let's pass through the answers first. Listing the services offered by the library and numbering them. Okay, this sounds correct. Give the formal meaning of the library services. No, you're not, to enumerate is not, you're counting actually, and you're also listing. Explain the services that the library offers by giving examples. You're not explaining, you're just listing them. Explain the meaning of the library services. No. So our answer here is the first one. So listing the services offered by the library and numbering them. That is our answer. Now, to enumerate, like I've earlier said, it just means to list items one by one. Okay, so that is very important. I remember when we were doing the census mapping exercise in 2021. Now, is it 2021, 2020, somewhere there, 2021, 2020, 2021, before the actual census. So like we were enumeration officers. Okay, well, we used to be called MDCs, map data collectors. So you're collecting data on the map. Now it was an enumeration. You are trying to, in as much as you're updating these maps, you're also trying to count how many goats do you have, sir, how many this do you have. Okay, that is also some of the basic information. Now those are very important projects. Those numbers are used in national development and other key projects that are run by the government. So basically that. So to enumerate basically that. And basically you're going to be used to be given what we call EAs. Now EAs, in this case we're talking about the enumeration, then the A is the area. So the enumeration area that you're going to be, which area are you going to be listing and counting from? Basically that. Okay. Question number 26. Which statement is not true about citation and referencing? Which statement is not true? Okay, so not true about citation and references. Let's start with the first one. The process of acknowledging other people's works, which we're referring, is not true. The process of acknowledging other people's works and ideas, okay, this is true, because as you are citing and as you are referencing. Now referencing, there are several, but we're not really going to talk about that in details. Referencing, mostly we usually use the Harvard style. I'm sure you've tried that, you've learned that, that's how we use, but the other referencing styles, APS style, the American one, American Standard one, API, there are a lot, okay? So sometimes you might never use references, you might want to use bibliographies, all those kind of things. Now this question is talking about which statement is not true. Now the first answer is the process of acknowledging other people's works and ideas. When you reference, you are acknowledging, so that is very true. Then direct quotations and of any facts or opinions and arguments used in your research or assignment. Of course, because in as much as you are getting these references, in as much as you are getting these quotations, others are opinions, others are facts, but based that you've put them, that is very important. Okay, that is true. Compiling reference, which statement is not true about compiling reference lists? Yes, that is very important. You are going to come up with a reference list. Mostly it's a reference page at the end of the your research or whatever paper you're working on. So you're going to put references at the end of the day. So you come up with a reference list. That is very important. Then knowing the institution to which the authors of information sources you are using are affiliated. Okay, this one is obvious, so this one is not. So basically that's our answer in this case. This is our answer. Knowing the, because why is that important? Knowing the institution to which authors are affiliated. Although this might be useful, this is not the core requirement of citation, okay? Yeah, you might know where the author comes from. Okay, it's from the University of Zambia, it's from Copperbelt University, it's from Harvard University. Basically, you might know that information. But when it comes to the referencing, that is not the core requirement of citation. We come to 28. What is generally the rule regarding students' use of academic journal articles downloaded from paid databases? What is generally the rule? What is generally the rule regarding students' use of academic journal articles downloaded from paid databases? Now, those are the answers that we have. So what are generally the rules? They can only be read on library computers. No, you can read them from anywhere. They are for personal research only. Okay, this one sounds a bit, let's leave it. They can only be shared with students by academic staff at the university. Anyone can share it with you. You need to get a database license before you can access or use them. Not really, as long as someone has downloaded it. Okay, the second one sounds correct. They are for personal research only. access is typically restricted to personal academic use. That's what you should understand. So in this case, that is our answer. We come to question number 29. Asking questions in class and having a purpose for listening are signs of dash. So when you're asking questions, is it because you're confused about the material? Not really. Student success, not really to show signs of student success. Doesn't mean you just active listening. That might be correct. Okay, action plan, no. So these behaviors that they've just shown, you asking questions for the purpose of listening, this behavior shows engagement in the session. It also shows attentiveness. Probably you are listening to a certain concept and you're asking because you really want to know more about it. Basically, that's what we're talking about. Question number 30. The reader of your academic essay expects an essay that dash. The reader of your academic essay expects an essay that dash. Focuses on various issues. Not really, because you want to be, in as much as you are going to come up from the broader perspective, you want to narrow it down to what you're talking about. So not just various issues, a specific issue. Indicates limited reading. The reader of your academic expects an essay that indicates limited reading. No, you want, when you're reading something, you want to feel that, okay, this person, they did their research. Okay, presents a reasonable number of fallacies. Not really. Presents reasoned arguments. Okay, indicates non-critical reading. Not really. So what you should understand is that academic writing should be logical and well supported. And how can it be well supported? It is when you present reasoned arguments. Now, reasons, when we're going to be doing a course called critical thinking, some of you, as you're going to come to Ridgeway, reasoned arguments with what we call an argument. Okay, an argument is going to have what we call premises. Premises are the reasons why you're coming up with that argument. Okay, so basically that it has to be very, very logical. It has to be very, very well supported, and that is very important. The other one saying presents a reasonable number of fallacies. Not really. You don't want to come up with a number of fallacies, because fallacies are mistakes that people make in in communication. So those, especially in arguments, when you've made a mistake on a certain argument, just because someone has said something, and there are a lot of fallacies that you're going to learn. There's ad baculum. There are like a lot of fallacies. Okay, haste realization, generalization, where someone just generalizes, like let's say all men are dogs. Okay, that's just to say that respectively, but that's what most people say. So that is a fallacy of generalization. Now, you've generalized that all of them are dogs, but if that is what you've put in your essay, do you have a reasoned argument? Okay, so you don't want to put a lot of fallacies, because if you generalize, what if, have you dated all the men? So that might also bring such questions, because it's not fully logical and it hasn't been backed up. Okay, not all of them. There are faithful people out there. The fact that our mothers and our fathers have been married for 40 years, all those kind of things. They've been married for 20, others even 50 years they are together. Basically that. So That is like generalized. There are a lot of fallacies, like a number of them. Basically, that's all you would want to avoid, especially such fallacies, especially where you're just generalizing without backing up. Question number 31. Evaluating your information sources will help you to do the following except when you're evaluating, what is it going to help you? First, before we talk about the except one, what is it, when you're evaluating your information, what is it going to help you? Determine the credibility of information. Of course, when you're evaluating, when you're thinking about this information, it's going to now help you come up with the credibility. How credible is this information? Let's say there is a post that is going viral about a certain disease. Just because you've seen it on someone's status, you would want to first go to sources that are very credible enough. Okay, example, refereed journals. There's certain journals that are very particular. You'd want to check if there's an outbreak. You'd want to check like on ZNHPI, like in Zambia National Public Health Institute. They're going to provide all them if there is really an outbreak, not just on someone's status. So you would want to check the credibility of that information. Okay, that is very important. Then number 2, you want to determine if the information is appropriate for the intended use. Of course, when you're evaluating, you want to determine if this information is really for that use. Then option 3, whatever option 3 is, then last one, know how to save the information. So not really. When you're evaluating, you don't want to know how to save information. Okay, so evaluation, you've now seen that it just focuses on credibility and relevance of that information. Okay, not file management. You don't want to save these files. You just want to find this credibility and relevance, not management of files. Question number 32. Drawing information or content from the work of another without acknowledging the source by citing a reference is considered to be plagiarism in all of the following cases except. So we're trying to draw information from someone's work. So which one is plagiarism, which one is not plagiarism? That's the question. Drawing information or content from the work of another without acknowledging the source by citing a reference is considered to be plagiarism in all of the following except. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Using the exact words of the author, that would be plagiarism. Using data that the author has compiled through his or her independent investigation, that will also be plagiarism. Using information from the author's work that is regarded as common knowledge in the discipline. Okay, so our answer will be this one. So basically what we're talking about is that common knowledge doesn't require citation. Okay, it's just common, although knowledge is not really common, okay, unless if you seek for it. But common knowledge, if you find it, you don't have to cite it. Okay, it doesn't require citation. So basically that there will be no plagiarism there. 33. A good presentation includes the following stages. A good presentation includes the following stages. So when talking about a good presentation, let's start with the first one. Does a good presentation include organization? Of course, you have to be organized. Preparation, yes, you have to be prepared. And delivery, yes. Organization, practice, and delivery. Preparation, practice, and presentation. Preparation, organization, and presentation. So The key phases of effective presentation. Those ones you just highlighted: organization, preparation, and delivery. These are the key ones. We have to know. We have to know which one is introduction. Are you now going into the the main chunk of them from the main body? You have to signal to us that now you're citing your reasons, or maybe why you are hypothesizing a certain statement, or you also have to show us that you're concluding. Probably be using things like altogether to crown it all in conclusion. People will know that now he's concluding. You have to be very organized. That is a good presentation. Then preparation. Now, preparation and practice might be really different. Okay? Because preparation in this case, you might also practice. Preparation encompasses, like, it's a broader thing. Okay? It might not really like practice. It might not really like mean practice, because preparation might mean you need resources. You go for online videos to watch. You download PDFs. You go to some of the search engines, Google Scholar, YouTube, AI. Some of you, all those sources, they are preparing you for a good presentation. Basically, that might not mean practice. Okay, practice might be part of preparation. Okay, but preparation, it goes a broader way. That's why we've gone for preparation. Then delivery. Now, delivery is very important. How you now deliver your message. So a good presentation first has to be organized. Yes, it's organized now. Now that it is prepared from all the sources that are necessary for that presentation, how you deliver is more important. Someone said approach matters and approach matters. Now, these are two statements. If I say approach matters and approach matters, basically that's what we're talking about. Okay, so those might sound the same, but they're different. Okay, based on how you're using. So the approach that you're going to use and how you're going to deliver is very important. Which method are you using to deliver your information? Okay, is it a presentation? Okay, is it now? Why we've talked about delivery, not presentation? Because it might be different. It's delivery. A presentation might just be a subset of delivery. Okay, because to deliver, or the method or the approach that you're going to use might be different. It might be a presentation, yes. It might be different forms. Okay, it might not just necessarily be a presentation. It can be a talk, it can be a seminar, it can be a group arrangement where you're just talking to people. It might differ based on how you've organized your work and how you've prepared. So basically that. So that's what we're talking about. We go to question number 34. One of the principles of communication is that a message should include all facts the patient needs for the reaction desired. This is the principle known as the dash. So, question number 34. So, I think this is a repeated question. We talked about it in previous sessions. So, you're going to realize that sometimes when you're doing questions in DME, some of the questions are going to be repeated. Okay, that's just part of it, but otherwise those are bonuses for you. Question number 36. An essay that explains a concept or theory refers to dash. Okay, basically that one is called an expository essay. So an expository essay explains ideas or theories clearly. Okay, so when I'm talking about theories, uh, where someone is claiming that this is so, so an expository essay tries to explain why that someone is saying like so. So it might not be very descriptive. It might be okay. It might be an explanation, but an expository, are trying to not just explain about something. You're explaining a hypothesis. You're explaining a theory that you've come up with. Basically, it's specific. A narrative essay, a narrative, not really a narrative essay, because you're not telling a story. You are trying to prove why that concept, or why you are say something is so. Question number 37. When is the best time to highlight or mark a text for key terms and concepts? When is the best time to highlight or mark a text for key terms and concept? So what are we talking about? When is the best time? So let's start with the first one. Never, because when is the best time to highlight or mark a text for key terms and never, because you won't be able to sell your textbook back to the bookstore. When is the best time to highlight or mark a text for key terms and concepts? Never, because you won't be able to sell your textbooks back to the bookstore. You can, as you skim through before you really read the chapter. Not really, you have to first read the chapter, you understand what it is, then you highlight now. After you've read the material, in order to avoid overmarking less important material. Okay, this sounds very correct. Okay, after you've read the material, now you understand what they're talking about. Now basically, for me, I don't read the book once, so if I read it once, the next time I'm reading, the perspective just changes. Okay, the way I'm understanding now becomes like, okay, this was trash. I don't go for trash, I just go for the main point. Okay, now I thought like this was a point, but it's not the point. Actually, what the point is this one now, because now my understanding has shifted. I've read it once, but now I want to get into what the author was saying, to be in sync with the author's words. That's what you want. Okay, so basically that while you're reading, so you don't miss the last one saying while you're reading, so you don't miss anything important. Actually, when you're even reading and you're highlighting, it might seem like it's good, but sometimes you might be marking, things that are not even important, because it's your first time reading this material. So that is important. So reading first helps identify truly important concepts. That's what we're talking about. So basically, the marked one is our answer. We come to question number 38. When you apply logic to your academic writing, you will dash. When you apply logic to your academic writing, you will dash. Okay, so we're talking about an aspect of logic. So when you apply logic to academic writing, you will construct arguments invalidated by rational references. Not really invalidated. Construct arguments validated by rational inferences. Okay, not really. We're not talking about argument. Evaluate resources and claims to arrive at truth. Procure information. Use fallacious statements. Okay, so these ones are all of them wrong. Evaluate resources and claims to arrive at the truth. So basically, when you start doing logic, there's a good book, A Concise Logic. A concise. Is it A Concise to Logic by Haley? So basically that is a book that we use for critical thinking. You can check it out. Not really, probably just for those ones who just want to learn about critical thinking, how you critically think. Okay, it's one of the best books that you can read. So a concise, yeah. So logical reasoning here, what we're talking about is that logical reasoning supports critical analysis and sound conclusions, because you want to evaluate these resources. That's why we're talking about critical analysis. Okay, then after you've analyzed these sources, you want now to check if the claims are arriving at truth. So you want to, what we're talking about, you want to have sound conclusions. So basically you are going to learn about, but since that is not part of your course, we're just talking about truth tables. We're trying to check if the statement or the argument is valid or not. That's where logic comes in. To conduct an effective literature search, you need to dash. To conduct an effective literature search, you need to dash. Okay. The first one is to know your information requirements. Okay, this sounds true. To know the qualifications of the authors. Okay, to know the title of the information resources. To know the gender of the author. Okay. Okay, sometimes I laugh with especially courses to do with English and stuff like that. So basically, when you're conducting, for you to conduct an effective literature search, you want to know the information requirements. What the clear goals, clear goals help guide your search strategy. Okay, so basically that's what we're talking about. You want to know your information requirements. Okay, so if you're not clear about what you're doing, it will be very hard. So basically, for you to conduct an effective literature search, you need to know your information requirements. Where am I going to get this information? How am I going to strategize? However, on the contrary, knowing the qualifications of the authors, although that brings credibility, but like we've said, that doesn't really add up. Okay, because those might be opinions, might be facts. Yes, you're going to be referencing them, putting them in text, citations, also putting them on the reference list or bibliographies, although that is very important. But others are opinions, but that makes your research powerful. So your research becomes more powerful because of the data that you're collecting. It's coming from the global perspective, and it's narrowing down. So talk about the global perspective. What happened in Russia, or let's say what happened, narrowed down now to Africa. What happened in a certain area in Africa. However, there might be sources that oppose what happened in, let's say, in UK. There might be sources that agreed with what happens in Zambia. Basically, those will be facts, others will be opinions, but at the end of the day, it makes your research to be, broad, but in as much as it is broad, it's going in a certain specific direction, the goal that you're trying to achieve. That is very important. Question number 40. How many items can be represented by 5 bits? Okay, how many items can be represented by 5 bits? You know that the computer mostly uses what we call binary numbers, right? Zeros and ones, and there'll be a lot. So now a bit, 1 bit, how many items can be represented by a bit? Now a bit, in this case, what are we going to have? So what you should understand is that 1 bit is close to is it 8? Okay, we did those times a long time ago. What about 5? Okay, if you do 5, it will be roughly like maybe let's say 40, but in this case there's a formula that we use. Okay, so the way you're going to find the number now of the items that these bits are going to represent, you're going to say 2 to the power n. Now the n in this case, it is just the number of bits, so in this case it will be 2 to the power 5. Now how many combinations are you going to have? Okay, let's do 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2. 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, that is 8, multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 on the other side, that is like a 4. 8 multiplied by 4, that is a 32. So basically that is the number of the items that can be represented by 5 bits. So that is very important. Those are the possible combinations. We come to question number 41. So basically this will be the last question. There is a strong positive and significant correlation between critical thinking ability and dash ability. So what are we talking about? So there's a strong positive, okay, and significant correlation between critical thinking ability and dash ability. Observational ability, nope. Interpreting ability, not really. Pre-listening analysis ability, no. Listening and comprehension ability. Okay, this is the last one is very correct. Why are we saying it's the correct one? You know, strong listening skills support deeper analysis and understanding. Okay, because to really comprehend what someone is really talking about, the comprehension, the listening comprehension, the deep analysis is very, very important. So strong positive significant correlation between critical thinking ability and also listening comprehension ability. These ones are very, very important. Okay, as far as communication and understanding is concerned. Basically this is what we're going to end from today. We're talking about DME. These are some of the questions that are high yield questions. Okay, they might be repeated somewhere, who knows, but also try to use other sources to familiarize yourself with these concepts. Basically that is DME. More questions you can check on several sources. They are going to help you in preparation of the final exam too. Okay, so basically this is where we end from for today, and see you in other sessions.